It is Monday, January 14th, 2019. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a very early get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday. We covered a lot of stand-up stuff, specifically some takedowns. And it was the morning class, so it was more an open mat and kind of a workshop kind of gig. And we covered quite a bit of angles and different grips. And I'm not entirely certain I got it all, but it was definitely good to get in some additional footwork. It's one of the things that I don't feel like I get enough of as is. And seeing as the fight almost always starts in a standing position, it's good to bone up. But yeah, I really like takedowns only because it's one of those times when I really get an opportunity to explode. You know, and disrupt my opponent. If I can get a hold of them and launch them, you know, that definitely will give me a mild advantage when it comes to taking things to the ground. And if I can direct the flow of the ground, I think that's really, really key. And it was one of the things I was trying to convey to my training partner, was that he was trying to He was trying to develop a system of takedowns that branch from one to another, you know, and I think one of the things, there's two ends of it. I presented this to him as kind of a proposal, is that you start with the ending position. You start at the end of the book, you know, where the paragraph above where it says the end. That's where you start your sequence. You know, it's like, okay, so I want to end up in an arm bar on his right arm. You know, what do I have to do to facilitate that? Well, you know, I'm in this position sitting down, and so, you know, I've got to work, you know, from there. How did I get there? You know, and just work it backwards. It's like, okay, so I had to swing my leg over to get it over his head, and then seal up that arm bar. Right? And it's like, okay, well, where was my leg before it was over his head? Was it already over his head, or was it, you know, and from there, going back a step, back a step, back a step, back a step, until you're standing. And by the time you get all the way back out, you should know which kind of takedown you're going to do based on your position and your opponent's position. It's like, okay, so he's got his left leg forward and his right leg back. Okay, well that immediately, if I've got my right foot forward, that's going to open up the possibility right there of a single leg takedown. You know what I mean? And so it's like, you know, what's the end goal? You know, where am I trying to take this, and what's initiating it? You know, it's like, and I think that was the part I was having trouble with, was that, you know, and I even told him this, was that I'm more concerned about efficiency. It's like, how can I get my opponent in a compromised position with as few tools as available to them as possible, and me at the most advantage. You know, that's my thinking with regard to, you know, takedowns. Is like, you know, if I have to do some funky footwork to get you to go down, either A, my easy game has failed, or B, I'm putting way too much effort out there, and that there are much less efforted, much more efficient means of doing the same task than the flamboyant or the high energy movement. And the other point that I was, you know, kind of in contention with him was the foot position. And he didn't seem to be as concerned with foot position, and I think that's one of the reasons why he was having trouble with linking it. You know, it's like I said, it's the higher percentage game, if I've got my right foot forward and they've got their left leg forward, is to go for the single leg, because it's the closest thing to me. It's going to take the least amount of effort for me to get to it. You know, I mean, maybe I do just a little bit of a shuffle to get my foot even with theirs, but by then I've crossed the meridian, you know. And it's like, and I was talking about that with him too, is about halfway through your foot is the meridian line. And I really think that if you, when you're addressing your opponent, if you are at or past the meridian line, running through the middle of their foot, you should be in contact and attacking. You know, if you're still swinging a leg around or something like that, by the time you've crossed the meridian, again, you've got to be attacking elsewhere too. You know, it's like, so what I mean by that is, one of the takedowns that I got last week, I had a cross collar grab on my opponent, and I had them pulled down to where his head was about level with my shoulder. And previous to doing that, I had looked down and saw where his foot position was, and I crossed the meridian with my right foot and hooked it around the back of his ankle and then dropped down. And so that's what I'm saying. It's like, if I'm past the meridian, I want to be in contact where I'm going to be contacting my opponent, and I want to be taking them down or attacking them or in an attack position. You know, it's like, by the time my foot gets around that meridian, I want to have the underhook. You know, I want to have the cross grab. I want to have the ankle pick, you know, or be reaching for it by the time I cross that imaginary line. You know, if you were to take your opponent and standing, you know, just run a line straight down the middle, that intersects with the shoulder, the ear, the hips, the knees, all the way down. And that's what I call the meridian. You know, you've only got so much flexion forward and back from that point. And standing, the lower you are, the easier it is to push somebody, leverage somebody over their balance, you know, the meridian line. You know, and that's kind of what I'm associating it with, is the meridian line is kind of representative of your distribution of balance. And I don't know how to describe that as far as like an XYZ three-dimensional vector. You know, it's like on the x-axis and the y-axis, it's the meridian line that runs through there. Anyway, but yeah, it's the easiest ways to push you over is either forward or back. You know, if you try to go from one of the sides, the base of somebody standing is the broadest from either of the sides. And so, again, you cross the meridian line, you want to be attacking. But anyway, that was kind of a stumbling block, I think, was interrupting his progression of takedown attempts, where he wasn't thinking about, okay, my foot position is starting here and, you know, ending there. And like, I'm a stickler for foot position, or at least I try to be. I find it's very, very important in getting a move, you know, especially like a hip throw or something like that. Your foot position is fucking key, man. Fucking key. And so to be trying to fashion a string together of takedown attempts without regarding the foot position, you know, I have a little trouble with that. But that's just me. You know, I'm not a purple belt yet, so, you know, little details like that, I guess, you know, maybe they only stick out to you when you're a blue belt, and by the time you're a purple belt, you're just like, yeah, fuck it, go for it. I don't know. Maybe it's a change in mentality. But nonetheless, I did have fun. I did manage to get one submission, although knowing the gentleman that I was rolling with, you know, I don't know if it was something that he gave to me or just something he overlooked until it was way too late. But it was funny, I kind of fed him my leg for like a single leg, you know, where I put my left leg forward and I had my hand on my hip on that side. And so he shot for the single leg, and I caught the cross collar underneath his chin. And I managed to snatch the foot away, but I retained him on my side, and then I just got the arm locked to it. And I actually did have to go down with him in order to secure it, but I got my legs up over his back and got that fucking guillotine. I mean, and that's a rarity for me, because I did actually feel it, like it was in there. You know, it was a proper guillotine. Whereas many times I've gotten people just like, 7/8 to the right position, but their chin is out of alignment or something like that, and for whatever reason I can't get it. And there was a point where he almost did disengage me. I had a little bit of trouble in the point that we actually went down. I kind of lost it for just a moment, but I managed to get a proper S grip, and then got the arm up over his shoulder and sealed that meal. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music. As far as material, I got a shit ton of tabs open on my browser, so I'm not entirely certain exactly where we're going to go, but I'm almost 100% certain I've already got it. So, we haven't been opening with body count. And I saw something the other day. Somebody posted a picture of their new ski mask, and so I'm like, dude, you're already ready for coin metal. Here it is, ski mask way. First dance here on Coin Metal. And that was The Contortionist with Causality. Yeah, I had an opportunity to see them when they played here in Oregon. I want to say like in October or November, and it was just a misalignment of funds. I didn't line things up right. When I made my last withdrawal, I didn't take into account that and missed out. But it happens, I mean. Not that long afterward, I got to see Metallica. So no complaints here. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, as far as what we're going to be getting into today, I had a few things. seems like ever since cryptocurrencies came along, there's always been this idea that cryptocurrencies are somehow going to conflict with governments, and I've never seen this as being true. That the goals of cryptocurrencies have absolutely nothing to do with government, other than eliminating a lot of the current friction that we experience on our everyday transactions digitally. And so it's with that context in mind that it's like, when I see people talking about being more government compliant or being not more government compliant, I think it's a bunch of bullshit. Okay, it's like this: you've got the coins in your wallet. The feds, nobody has any ability to reach into your wallet and take your funds out. Now, that's assuming, of course, that your funds are on chain. Because then the record of who owns what is actually a public record. Not saying it's unalterable, but it's pretty fucking hard to alter it. By comparison to, say, if you were using a custodial account. It's like people seem to forget all about that. I've been seeing more and more in my Twitter feed about all these people offering up custodial services. If you're using your cryptocurrency in a custodial account, unless we're talking about like a cryptocurrency exchange, you're probably doing it wrong. You don't need to use third-party arbiters in your transactions in Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. You just don't need to. That's what all this shit. That's what's so wonderful about all of this shit. People will tell you store value and whatever. None of that shit matters. What really matters is what you can do with it. If the services that you're using it through prohibit you from using it with certain people, like we've seen with Steemit and even medium where they've been actively censoring people's materials. And on Steam It, if people like your shit, they give you credit in Steam It, right? That you can then take and sell and make money on, right? Well, now Steam It has taken it upon themselves to simply eliminate accounts of people that, for whatever reason, whether it be a government pressure or something to that effect, says, no, we're just going to delete your content. And we're going to cut off your ability to make money here. I mean, we've seen this as a progression. I want to say since around like 2015, 2016, there's been this ever-growing pressure to contain how you can use data and who you can pay and how you can pay them. And I see that as like a major step backwards. Especially, again, concerning this idea of governments being in conflict with cryptocurrencies. I see the only real conflict, again, being the fact that you control your funds, despite the fact they are digital in nature. This means that you can carry them pretty much anywhere. You can email them to yourself. You can IM them to yourself. You can send them anywhere you want to, anytime you want to. And stash it in ways that have never been available before. And I'm sure that panics some in government, because they're like, well, you know what? Nobody in their right mind would knowingly fund what we're doing right now with this money in particular. So, we've got to find another way to steal the funds from it to fund it, or we got to stop doing it, because that shit costs money. And we're coming up to a time when fewer and fewer quote-unquote millionaires exist. They're currently living on their liquidity right now. If they're not actively trading the ups and downs and shorting and all that other bullshit, they're living on their reserves and their liquidity that they're going to be investing in the next cycle. And this has been indicated, to me at least, in the growing credit demand. Where people are living with those, what's that, money, the date. I'm trying to think of it. It's like a cash, the check cashing services, the payday loans. That shit's going up. And that shit only happens when people don't have liquidity on hand. Or don't have enough liquidity on hand, that is. And so it's one of those places I really think where cryptocurrencies can make a big difference, is that there's plenty of demand for commerce to be going on out there. There's plenty of supply waiting on the sidelines because it can't get in. It's got too much regulatory cruft, and there really isn't a way for the market to be expressing its demand to them, because in fact the demand doesn't have the money to express that demand. They're tying it up in rent and electricity and water and taxes and bullshit. So it's like with cryptocurrencies, though, we create the liquidity. So while you're expending electricity on light and you're expending electricity on your desktop and so on, you could probably be supplementing all of that with, say, maybe solar panels. I know, sounds weird, but if you consider the offset that you could possibly be making with whatever square space you have available in your electricity bill, that's a savings, man. That's money in your pocket. Penny saved, penny earned, all that business, that's real. Now, the idea, what gets me though about solar and other renewable sources is I've been seeing things where the counties or the state will actually tax you on your electricity or some shit like that. I think if it's not connected to your house, nobody has any idea it's actually happening, so don't fucking worry about it. I think one of the problems that we've been facing as we've transitioned into the 21st century is that too little is actually demanded of you. When I walk around Walmart and I see people that are carrying on a few extra pounds, I've got to think there's something you could be doing. You could be planting something for yourself so you don't actually have to come to Walmart, or there's something you could be building. There's something you could be doing with your body that you're not doing with your body that you'd probably be happier if you were doing with your body. And your current physical state is like an expression of that dissimilarity between your natural tendencies and desires and the type of work that you've convinced yourself that's what you're limited to, or the capabilities that you say that you're limited to. Man, I don't know. I have a disdain for the limits I even put on myself. And so when I see people with their bodies in such a way that leads me to believe they just kind of accepted a lot of things, kind of given up on a lot of things, it makes me angry. It just makes me angry. I think that everybody has within them the capabilities and the aptitude to be the best at whatever it is they do. It's like, and that there are things that they are capable of doing. There are inclinations that they have. They don't even know that they have. Like, they're buried under 8 layers of social expectations fed to them by TV and the internet. It's just sad. It's just sad. But anyway, we're talking about control here and how much of it that you take for yourself. And because cryptocurrencies allow us to take so much control, it really makes you wonder what you want to give up some of that control for. What would you be willing to give it up for? What could motivate you to give up some of it? And so here it is. It's on bitnewsbot.com. China wants to censor the blockchain now. This is on authored January 12th, 2019, so not too old, but a little older than average. Anyway, continuing. After Chinese citizens bypass censorship by storing documents on Ethereum's blockchain, China's government has passed regulations that require the blockchain to be censorable. Quote, Chinese blockchain platforms will have to censor content, allow authorities access to stored data, and check the identity of the users under rules set out on Thursday by Beijing, Reuters says. And so, you know what? We're going to go straight to the source. If Reuters will let us read it. No paywall? Okay, here we go. Reuters.com, and this is actually authored January 10th at 4:26 a.m. 5 days ago. Even older than I thought. Let's see if it has any links in it. No? Links. No, I'm not seeing any. Oh shit. Oh, what the fuck? That's weird. The thing just like glitched out on me. Weird. Okay, here we go. So yeah, Shanghai Chinese blockchain platforms will have to censor content, allow authorities to access stored data, and check. Dude, what the fuck? You know what? I gotta find out more on this subject. These are dainty-ass articles explaining very, very abbreviated versions of what's probably really going on. Let's see here. I'm trying to find one in Chinese. Let's see if this one will get us closer to it. No, it's fucking Reuters. Here we go. The original announcement. God damn, I love the internet. Now we're going to take this thing to Google Translate and we'll be able to read it. Love the internet. Love the internet. Love the internet. With just a teeny tiny bit of effort, I managed to get, let's see here, Google Translate. Yeah. And so, let's see here. There's one of these, it's like for websites and shit. Let's see here. English. Translating, oh yes. Love the fucking internet. Alright, this is I guess the actual statement. Let's see if it gives us a link. Regulations and management of blockchain. Aha! Here we go. Pay dirt. Pay dirt. Okay, so now what we're going to do. Let's see, Google Translate. Oh, no. Do that. Trying to find the actual regulations itself and see if I can get them translated into English here. This Guardia, blah, 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 blah. Give me a goddamn link to the legislation. I don't want media reports. I want legislation. Blockchain under blockchain. Released. Gimme. Oh, I think I might have it. Might have it. Translate. God damn, I love the internet. Can't say it enough. Translate. Translating. Come on! Translate the motherfucker! God damn it. Another article. Give me a fucking link to the legislation at hand. Oh, well, this looks like probably the rawest we're gonna get on this thing. Fuck it. This is as far as I'm gonna push it for China. Especially because it's concerning some bullshit regulation. Anyway, continuing on. The National Network Information Office issued regulations on the management of blockchain information services, which will be implemented on February 15th. And this is authored 1/10/2019 at 17:07. No indication of time zone. But the source was China Netcom, so I don't know. National Internet Information Office Order. Number 3. The regulations on the management of blockchain information services has been reviewed and approved by the Office of the Internet Information Office of the State Council and is hereby promulgated and will be implemented as of February 15th, 2019. This is Director Zhuang Rongwen, January 10th, 2019, Blockchain Information Service Management Regulations. Article 1. In order to regulate the blockchain information service activities, safeguard national security and social public interests, protect the legitimate rights and interests of citizens, legal persons, and other organizations, and promote the healthy development of blockchain technology and related services according to the, quote, national security of the People's Republic of China, the Internet Information Service Management Measures, and the Notice of the State Council on authorizing the State Internet Information Office to be responsible for the management of Internet information content shall be formulated. Okay, waste of time anyway, continuing. Article 2. The implementation of blockchain information services within the territory of the People's Republic of China shall comply with these provisions. Where there are other provisions in laws and administrative regulations, the provisions shall be followed. The blockchain information service referred to in these provisions refers to the provision of the information services to the public through the internet sites and applications based on blockchain technology or systems. Dude, you don't have any control over that shit. Continuing. The blockchain information service provider referred to in these provisions refers to the entity or node that provides the blockchain information service to the public, and the organization that provides technical support for blockchain information service. I'm supposing they're talking about trying to regulate miners. The block referred to in these provisions. A chain information service user is an organization or an individual that uses blockchain information services. You notice they're not discerning between a Chinese person or anybody else there? Continuing on, Article 3. The State Internet Information Office shall be responsible for the supervision and management of the National Blockchain Information Service in accordance with its duties. The Internet Information Office of the province, autonomous region, or municipality directly under the central government shall be responsible for the supervision and management of the Blockchain Information Service within its administrative area in accordance with its duties. In other words, it's gonna fuck off. Article 4. Encourage blockchain industry organizations to strengthen industry self-discipline, establish and improve industry self-discipline system and industry standards, guide blockchain information service providers to establish and improve service standards, promote industry credit evaluation system construction, and urge blockchain information service providers provide services according to law, accept social supervision, improve the professional quality of the staff of blockchain information service, and promote the healthy and orderly development of the industry. In other words, hire all my nieces and nephews and kick out all these little people that I don't have any control over. Article 5. The blockchain information service providers shall implement the responsibility for information content security management and establish and improve management systems such as user registration, information review, emergency response, and security protection. You know what, dude? I'm going to tell you something. China, I don't know if you guys are experiencing the same level of identity theft and all that other bullshit that we are here in the U.S., but I'm here to tell you now, none of this shit is going to protect anybody. The more information you gather, the more information there is to hack. The bigger honeypot you make yourself. That's all I'm going to say on that. Continuing. Article 6. Blockchain information service providers shall have the technical conditions appropriate to their services. Dude, you got fucking janitors setting up mining rigs in your fucking schools, for Christ's sake. Give me a break. For information content prohibited by laws and administrative regulations, they shall have immediate and emergency response capabilities for their release, recording, storage, and dissemination. It should conform to the relevant national standards. It should kiss my ass, too. Article 7. Blockchain information service providers shall formulate and publicly manage rules and platform conventions, sign service agreements with blockchain information service users, clarify the rights and obligations of both parties, and require them to commit to comply with legal provisions and platform conventions. Like that's ever fucking happened. Dude, the Chinese government has fucking teams of fucking hackers. And they're talking about other people adhering to platform conventions. Fuck you. Suck a dick. Continuing. Article 8. The blockchain information service provider shall, in accordance with the provisions of the network security law of the People's Republic of China, conduct real identity information based on the organization code, identity card number, or mobile phone number for the blockchain information service users, i.e. use burner phones. Certification. If the user does not perform real identity authentication, the blockchain information service provider shall not provide related services. Kiss my ass. Article 9. If a blockchain information service provider develops new products or new applications or new functions on the line, it shall report to the Internet Information Office of the state, province, autonomous region, or municipality directly under the central government for safety assessment in accordance with relevant regulations, i.e. none. Article 10. Blockchain information service providers. What is a blockchain information service provider? That's what I want to fucking know. What is a blockchain information service provider? We're not talking about a fucking internet, people. Andreas Antonopoulos, I blame this all on you. You and your fucking mentality of the blockchain being fucking internet 2.0. It is no such fucking thing. And trying to treat it as such is going to get us nothing but fucking wreckage. I don't think that people really understand this aspect of cryptocurrencies, is that they've been made to circumvent all of this bullshit for you to be able to mine them on your computer. And this is one of the problems with ASIC mining. It makes that fucking mining thing a soft target to hit. I keep telling people this, and they just, it's like it's in one ear and out the other. There is no scaling without adoption. And what that means is mining. You are the market, and you have every capability of being the product that is marketed on a global scale. So all of this idea, you can't do remittances with Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies without a fucking third party service. Fuck you. It was made specifically so I could do it without a third party service provider. And trying to nestle yourself between me and it is going to do nothing but hurt me and you and it. Continuing on. Blockchain information service providers and users shall not use blockchain information services to engage in activities prohibited by laws and administrative regulations that endanger national security, disrupt social order, and infringe on the legitimate rights and interests of others. Oh, what? I don't understand that one. What if I want to infringe on the legitimate rights or interests of others, and my legitimate rights and interests have been violated by that? Continuing on. And may not use blockchain information services. Yeah, good fucking luck stopping me, dude. Copy, publish, and disseminate information content prohibited by laws and administrative regulations. Yeah, dude, you can fucking prohibit whatever you want. If I can fit it into a fucking Bitcoin transaction, too fucking bad. Go suck a dick. If I can't do it on a Bitcoin transaction, I could probably do it on one of the other 2,000 fucking cryptocurrency blockchains in existence right now. So again, try and stop me. Article 11. The blockchain information service provider shall fill in the name, service category, service form, and application of the service provider through the National Internet Information Office Blockchain Information Service Filing System Management System within 10 working days from the date of providing the service. Information such as domain and server address and fulfilling the filing procedures. If the blockchain information service provider changes the service item or platform, website, etc., it shall go through the change procedures within 5 working days from the date of change. If the blockchain information service provider terminates the service, it shall go through the cancellation formalities 30 days before the termination of service and make proper arrangements. Yeah, no, they're not. No, they're not. You can say they will. This shit's all digital, all ephemeral. And say if they were in one of your autonomous zones, they could fucking bail out real quick, and you'd have no ability to stop them. Article 12. After receiving the filing materials submitted by the profilator, the Internet Information Office of the state, the province, the autonomous region, or municipality directly under the central government shall within 20 working days file the filing number and issue the filing number and pass the National Internet Information Office district. No, it shall. No. Dude, if I can like start up an email account on Gmail that is based on complete bullshit information in a few minutes, and within a few hours I could probably construct something that by all accounts would appear to be a legitimate business, especially if I had like my website already written and shit like that, and I could be up and down before the Chinese government even takes notice of me. I could be conducting business during that duration of being open, and again, Chinese government, no taxation, no control, bite ass. Article 12. After receiving and filing the materials submitted to the proofreader, blah, blah, blah. If the materials are incomplete, the filing shall not be filed, and the filing party shall be notified within 20 working days, and the reasons shall be explained. Article 13. The blockchain information service provider that completes the record shall indicate its record number in the prominent position of the internet station, application, etc. that it provides services to. In other words, making themselves a honeypot. Article 14. The Internet Information Office of the state, the province, the autonomous region, or the municipality directly under the control of the central government shall conduct periodic inspections on the information of the blockchain information service filing, and the blockchain information service provider shall log in to the blockchain information service filing management system within the specified time to provide relevant information. Wow. Information. So we really know that shit about that shit. Article 15. If there is a hidden danger of information security in the blockchain information service provided by the blockchain information service provider, it shall be rectified, and it shall continue to provide informational services after complying with relevant laws and administrative regulations and relevant national standards, i.e., you will delete your blockchain and edit it accordingly. Article 16. The blockchain information service provider shall take measures such as warning, restriction, and account closure for users of blockchain information services that violate laws, administrative regulations, and service agreements in the illegal information content. Take appropriate measures in a timely manner to prevent the spread of information, keep relevant records, and report to relevant authorities. And let me tell you something, if they do actually do all of that shit under Article 16 here, people will simply stop using that particular blockchain, and they will go to another blockchain that doesn't do all this bullshit, or another service provider that doesn't do all this bullshit. Continuing on. Article 17. The blockchain information service provider shall record the content and log information of the blockchain information service users, and the record backup shall be kept for not less than 6 months and shall be provided when the relevant law enforcement department inquires according to the law. Article 18. The blockchain information service provider shall cooperate with the supervision and inspection carried out by the Network Information Department according to law and provide necessary technical support and assistance. No. They're going to do that because it's in their interest. And really what's in their interest is the validity of the blockchain, because if it's not valid according to the rest of the network, their shit gets orphaned and that work gets wasted. So you got to work out those incentives there, man. You got to think, do we want the block reward or do we want to limit it? You know, do we want to limit our ability to get it? Because it's good to have the block reward. I mean, that's kind of like what the whole incentive behind mining is getting the Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency involved. Continuing on. The blockchain information service provider shall accept social supervision, set up convenient complaint reporting and entry, and promptly handle public complaints and reports. No, they shall not. They don't even do that now. Article 19. The blockchain information service provider violates Articles 5, 6, 7, 9, and 11, paragraph 11, Article 13, Article 15, and Article 10 of these provisions, Articles 7 and 18 shall be given a warning by the state, the province, autonomous region, or municipality directly under the central government in accordance with their duties, and shall be ordered to make corrections within a time limit. The relevant business shall be suspended before the correction. If it refuses to correct or the circumstances are serious, it shall be 5,000 yuan. The above fine of 30,000 yuan, if it constitutes a crime, criminal responsibility shall be investigated according to the law. Yeah, and then you're going to end up busting some finance minister's kid for selling ecstasy on the dark web, and you're going to change your mind. Article 20. If the blockchain information service provider violates the provisions of Articles 8 and 16 of these provisions, the Internet Information Office of the state, the province, the autonomous region, or municipality directly under the control of the central government shall, in accordance with duties, follow the provisions of the national security law of the People's Republic of China, handle it. No, like literally, those two words were in there. Handle it. Article 21. If a blockchain information service provider violates the provisions of Article 10 of these provisions and produces copies, publishes, or disseminates information content prohibited by the laws and administrative regulations, it shall be based on the Internet Information Office of the state, the province, the autonomous region, or the municipality directly under the central government. The duties shall be given a warning, and the order shall be corrected within a time limit. The relevant business shall be suspended before the correction. If the case is refused or the circumstances are serious, and a fine of not less than 20,000 yuan but not more than 30,000 yuan shall be imposed. If the crime is constituted criminal responsibility shall be investigated according to the law. If the user of the blockchain information service violates the provisions of Article 10 of these provisions and produces copies, publishes, or disseminates the information content prohibited by laws and administrative regulations, the Internet Information Office of the state, the province, the autonomous region, or the municipality directly under the central government shall comply with relevant laws and administrative regulations. The provisions are dealt with. And I did not add those 5 words. Article 22. If the blockchain information service provider violates the provisions of the first paragraph of Article 11 of these provisions and fails to perform the filing formalities or fill in the false filing information in accordance with these provisions, the Internet Information Office of the state, the province, the autonomous region, or the municipality directly under the central government shall, according to the duties and responsibilities, the company shall make the corrections within a time limit. If it refuses to make corrections, or if the circumstances are serious, it shall be given a warning, and shall be imposed a fine of not less than 10,000 yuan, but not more than 30,000 yuan. Article 23. Whoever engages in the blockchain information services prior to the promulgation of these provisions shall complete the relevant formalities in accordance with these provisions within 20 working days from the date of entry into force of these provisions. In other words, this shit's retroactive. Article 24. These provisions shall come into force on February 15th, 2019. Yeah, no, they won't. No, they won't. No, what's going to happen is, again, you're going to end up busting some finance administrator's kid in either mining or just bring him under investigation. You know, somebody will see his picture and say, this is so-and-so's second nephew on his wife's side, so, what do you want to do about that? And they're going to say, well, we obviously can't go forward with this legislation because we're going to end up busting our administrator's kid, and then we're going to lose a future administrator because then his record's going to be fucked, and so, yeah, we should probably not do that. It's the same fucking thing that's been happening for like the last, I want to say about 4 years now, where China has made a bunch of noise. Oh no, actually it's been longer than that. I want to say it's been since about like 2012, 2013 when the Chinese really started to get into mining, where their finance ministry or their central government or some such, their central bank or some such, they'll make some statement about future regulation, possible regulation, proposed regulation, and it's in the public view for about 3 to 5 days, and then it goes away. And then, like, somebody will remember it, right? And like, they'll remember it, like, right before the implementation date. You know, so, like, for this, it would probably be February 14th. You know, they'd be coming around on Twitter going, okay, put up or shut up. What the fuck? Nothing's changed yet. This is a bunch of bullshit. You know, I've got fans all over the planet. And they, when I put up stuff that they don't agree with because they, like, live there, they'll post on Twitter or Facebook or wherever I'm encountering them and be like, dude, this is a bunch of bullshit. Nothing's changed. Miners are still here. What the fuck? And so, you know, I've got to think in my mind, and especially the fact that we're not actually hearing about, you know, them knocking on the DOJ's door or, you know, Pentagon or anybody's door here in the United States going, hey, you know, so-and-so violated such and such via VPN on this date at this time, and, you know, we think you ought to do something about it. We want them arrested. We don't care that it's within your jurisdiction. The fact of the matter is they broke our laws, and so we need to hold them to account. You can imagine how good that would go over, right? And like I said, they did not discern between Chinese persons and the rest of the planet in these provisions. So, you know, they just said, what was it, blockchain service provider, like we're a bunch of fucking ISPs as miners. Give me a fucking break. You know, these crypto droughts, they are the kind of thing that this market needs to experience to understand the fact that we're not talking about a sphere of monopolies anymore. We're seeing the dissolution of monopolies. They were dissolved by the creation of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's monopoly was dissolved with the creation of Namecoin and fucking Dogecoin and Litecoin and, you know, the bazillion of coins that ended up after that. And I don't see that as a movement that's actually slowing down. As a matter of fact, I'm starting to see indications that appear to me, at least, that there is a growing interest in altcoins and the creation of new ones. But what you always have to keep in mind is the Bitcoin white paper. And I know that sounds like I'm being messianic about it or whatever, but the fact of the matter is that it gives us the best description of a cryptocurrency that is entirely frictionless, is global. It has all of the traits that have made all of this possible. You know, when people talk to you about Bitcoin not being money but being a store of value and you're supposed to hodl it, give me a fucking break. If you can't transact it, it's worthless. Worthless. I mean, you don't have to be in Venezuela to understand that. You can be a cryptocurrency trader and invest in a coin that you think is going to be cool because it looks like it's been, you know, hidden away and people haven't been really paying attention to it. Well, you know, sometimes there's reasons for that. You know, and you could buy in right before it just fucking tanks through the floor, and then it gets delisted, and you're stuck with a bunch of coins that don't have an active network out there. That shit happens. You know, Venezuela, though, it's their national currency that turned into a shit coin that everybody abandoned. That's a whole different story. Or not, rather the fact that everybody wasn't given a choice between what currencies they wanted to transact in. They were restricted solely to the bolivar, and now they're being abused for it. It's not going to be any different under the petro either. Anyway, continuing on, I'm going to go ahead and launch into some music. That was a bit long, so, it's music time. And where to go, though? That's always a question, because I tended to play a lot of good stuff there. But you know what? I didn't play any prong yet. Prong is always good in a clinch. Here we go. Compulsive future projection. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Within the Ruins, Elite. Yeah, as far as where we're going to go next, I've been lining up some tabs here. And, it's always given to us as, some aspect of public safety or concern about your funds. And, that they come to us with this, the idea of regulation and greater scrutiny over our funds expenditure and all that business, right? Well, the thing that always gets me about it is that if the qualities of your society were actually reflected in the nature of your people, there would be no demand for things like drugs. If it was somehow in your society, say if your people really like to smoke pot, there's something in your society, there's something in your culture, whether it's an ancestral use or just a current fascination or whatever, that's reflective of their desires, right? The existence of that market is reflective of their desires. And so when you introduce laws that are specifically contramanding their natural tendencies or whatnot, you're just making criminals. You're not really making people safer, you're just making criminals. See, a great deal of the conflict and friction and all that we've experienced in the drug war and whatnot, I believe at least, could have been completely contraband, and of course we would have additional problems that would sprout up. But as the cryptosphere has indicated to me, the markets that are legitimately, or the market players that are legitimately seeking to fulfill the demands of the market, which in the case of drugs is clean, safe, informed, meaning it is what it says it is, it does what you say it does. We have legitimate reports all over the place of what it does, how it acts. We can see in real time from the number of people that are fucking up with it, whether or not it's actually legitimate. That was the kind of marketplace that facilitated cryptocurrencies coming into being and being as big as they are right now. And I believe that if drugs were addressed in the same way, where you could go to your corner store and pick up whatever it was, LSD, mushrooms, whatever, that you could go and you could get it and you could use it in the privacy of your own home or whatever, but that by now we would have worked out social norms to where it would be, as easy to recognize as, say, not letting your kids out after dark, or after a certain time, so say it's 9 o'clock for you, not letting them out after that period. There's a reason for that, because a lot of bad shit happens after 9 o'clock out there that you don't necessarily want your child exposed to, especially if you're living in a city. So, we would have those social norms figured out by now with regard to these quote-unquote illegal substances. And we would actually have a legitimate onboarding process for new substances. And be much further ahead with regard to our chemical interactions. Whether our relationships with other chemicals or other substances, plants, synthesized drugs, whatever. It's all nature. We're nature, so it's nature. It's natural. Anyway, And I don't really acknowledge that discernment between us and nature. I think that because our actions affect nature, we are pretty much natural. We're as natural as ants. Ants make tunnels, we make technology. It just happens. Spontaneous. Anyway, where I'm going with all this is that I got this article here on foxantonio.com. Bitcoin used in illegal drug trafficking operations to avoid detection. This is by Yami Virgin. No indication of penis. I'm going to say no, just by the name, but Yami Virgin, I don't know. I could be mistaken. We'll find out. Or, it doesn't really matter. In a virtual world, there is also virtual money like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one of the most popular internet currencies. The DEA said the virtual currency is being used in the illegal trafficking of narcotics like fentanyl to avoid detection. Quote, "We've actually seen it utilized in the illegal trafficking of narcotics that are purchased on the so-called dark web here in the United States." In August 2018, the United States Department of Justice said the largest dark web distribution network bust in American history was run by a San Antonio couple. Authorities said they were selling massive amounts of illegal drugs and shipping them from their West Side home. The payment was Bitcoin. Quote, "It's a type of virtual currency that goes up and down in value." God damn, that's about the briefest description I've ever seen of it. "In the depths of the dark web, your location and personal information is almost impossible to identify, even for investigators and law enforcement. And that's why illegal goods like drugs are being sold and bought virtually without a trace, thanks to electronic currencies like Bitcoin, including right here in San Antonio." Quote, "An individual was selling fentanyl and other narcotics through the dark web and would only take payment in Bitcoin. So in order to purchase those narcotics, you would have to go to a, for lack of a better term, Bitcoin broker or banker and purchase a certain amount of Bitcoins." Whatever. Fentanyl is the drug most being trafficked through the dark web and being purchased with Bitcoin currency, according to government data. Yeah, that's a bunch of bullshit. It's actually pot. Quote, It's a technical savvy drug dealer who is doing this. The case I specifically spoke about, he was moving, I'd say, up to millions of dollars at the end, but he was doing multiple small-scale drug deals through the internet. So what makes a guy a big drug dealer or a small drug dealer? He was doing lots of small drug deals, but they ended up making millions of dollars. The high-tech criminals using cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin to buy drugs are also exploiting a little loophole in the United States international mail system, which does not require them to fill out who is sending the package or what is in it. Yeah, it's called I don't give a fuck. It's not my business. Yeah, as far as Bitcoin being used in illegal drug trafficking operations to avoid detection, yeah, that's nothing new. You know, if you couldn't buy drugs, and I'm going to give this one to Andreas Antonopoulos. Credit where credit is due. He said for this one, if you couldn't buy drugs with it wouldn't be money. It's true. You know, if you couldn't buy a substance or commodity with it, then it's not usable as a medium of exchange, which is what money is. And that there have been several people out there that have been trying to recategorize, in your mind at least, what exactly Bitcoin is. And, you know, that's not really their call. It's not their call, whether they be government or any other organization that isn't the constituency or constant that's between your ears. That's the main arbiter of value. You. That's right. You find him in the mirror every day. Or her. My apologies, sir. Anyway, as far as, what good is all of it? I got this next article here. Feds forcing mass fingerprint unlocks is an abuse of power, judge rules. This is on Ars Technica, and it was authored by Cyrus Farivar. So yes, penis. Authored January 14th, 2019. According to a new ruling issued last week by a federal magistrate in Oakland, California, the government can't get a warrant granting permission to turn up at a local house allegedly connected to a criminal suspect, seize all digital devices, and force anyone found at the house to use biometrics to try to unlock these devices. The 9-page order, which was issued on January 10th and first reported by Forbes on Monday, involves a criminal case that is otherwise sealed. There's a lot that remains unknown about the particulars, including the names of the suspects and why the federal authorities believe that the two suspects committed extortion via Facebook Messenger, and what Oakland House is involved. U.S. Magistrate Judge Candace Westmore found that the government request here, quote, runs afoul to the Fourth and Fifth Amendments, which protect against unreasonable searches and self-incrimination, respectively. Goddamn right. She continued, noting that the government's request was, quote, overbroad. Quote, the government cannot be permitted to search and seize a mobile number or other device that is on a non-suspect's person simply because they are present during an otherwise lawful search, the judge wrote. What about an unlawful search? Continuing on, Blake Reed, a law professor at the University of Colorado, told Ars that it was a positive step that another judge was understanding the possible ramifications of allowing the government to rifle through someone's phone. Quote, accessing people's phones is, in my opinion, much more like accessing the contents of their brains than it is the contents of their file cabinets, he emailed. Goddamn right. Multiple times, Judge Westmore cited a 2018 Supreme Court decision known as Carpenter, which found that the law enforcement needs a warrant to obtain more than 120 days of cell site location information. Dude, why would you need that volume of information? Quote, citizens do not contemplate waiving their civil rights when using new technology, and the Supreme Court has concluded that to find otherwise would leave individuals at the mercy of advancing technology, she wrote, citing the Carpenter opinion. Dude, every one of us should be suing Facebook and Twitter right now, and also like Steam It and any one of these organizations that they sign a tacit contract with us as to how they're going to use the data, and then they completely abuse it and use it in ways that we weren't even contemplating or were made aware that they intended the entire time to use it as. Continuing on. Judge Westmore's order is reminiscent of a 2017 order in a seemingly similar federal case in Illinois, where a federal magistrate also denied government efforts to conduct a nearly identical biometric dragnet. In the earlier case, the U.S. Magistrate Judge M. David Weissman quoted from the government's own warrant application, which specifically said that such biometric search language was now, quote, standard. Fuck you. Judge Westmore cited his opinion on her own as she reached her conclusion. Quote, while the court sympathizes with the government's interest in accessing the contents of any electronic devices it might lawfully seize, there are other ways that the government might access the content that do not trample on the Fifth Amendment, she wrote. Quote, in the instant matter, the government may obtain any Facebook Messenger communications from Facebook under the Stored Communications Act or warrant based on probable cause, While it may be more expedient to circumvent Facebook and attempt to gain access by infringing on the Fifth Amendment's privilege against self-incrimination, it is an abuse of power and it is unconstitutional. Damn Skippy. Fuck yes. And let's see if there's any comments on this thing. They're usually very educational. Let's see here. I Pirate Everything says, citizens do not contemplate waiving their civil rights when using new technology. Even if you thought otherwise, it would have been nice to have a law to back you up before you go fucking around with citizens. I agree, sir. Or ma'am, whichever the case may be. Just cause is just that. It is possible we'll get some rights back. Let's hope so. Let's hope, and if not, vote to 2020. Yeah, I intend to vote anyway. Yes. Let's see. The next one here, Aaron B1138. Glad someone finally pulled their head out of their ass on this matter. The Fourth Amendment part was sure to get picked up eventually. That is, that information on a smartphone, computer, etc. is clearly covered as, quote, papers and effects and requiring specificity. But the more important part here is acknowledging those contents also represent testimony and are protected by the Fifth Amendment. The latter part is very powerful and a reasonable interpretation for much of the data found on a smartphone, but I'm not giving it the best odds of surviving a trip to the Supreme Court. The government has way too much vested in not reasonably, much less logically interpreting the law. On the flip side, covering LEOs to instead abuse the third-party doctrine is still ugly. Regardless of physical location, your communication on Facebook Messenger and similar platforms needs to either be treated as the same way as a phone call or fax telecommunications or personal letters in a safe deposit box in a bank. Goddamn right. That was by Aaron B1138 on Ars Technica. Let's see here. Oh, geez. I might actually go through that one. This is kind of funny here. Just cause is just that wrote, is it possible we'll get some rights back? Let's hope, and if not, vote 2020. You're assuming you'll be allowed to vote in 2020. Remember, Der Gruppenführer wanted to issue a national emergency. Quote, a claim of emergency powers was at the center of President Abraham Lincoln's suppression of habeas corpus without congressional approval in 1861. Lincoln claimed that the rebellion created an emergency that permitted him the extraordinary power of unilaterally suspending the writ, with Chief Justice Roger Taney sitting as judge. The Federal District Court of Maryland struck down the suppression in ex parte Merriman, although Lincoln ignored the order. President Delano Roosevelt similarly invoked emergency powers when he issued an order directing that all Japanese Americans residing on the West Coast be placed into internment camps during World War II. The Supreme Court upheld this order in Korematsu versus United States. Yeah, some dangerous precedent there. Let's see here. Zorro says now it goes to an appellate court. It may very well be overturned. It's a possibility. But you do have to keep in mind the reality here that we're not talking about things that will only pertain to a certain class of people. And that the exposure that some of us experience, all of us experience. And this is something that not a lot of people are really paying attention to. Like the Marriott hack. They were hacked for 4 years. 500 million customers' data was compromised. You can't tell me that a sitting judge, a one of their kids, one of their relatives, one of their direct relatives, a congressperson, a senator, or president, somebody important, didn't get their shit compromised. You can't tell me that. And with the way that things are linked, they could have all of your everything if your data was compromised in those hacks. So the idea that I really think that we need to revert back to the idea of not gathering data, because the more data that gets gathered on you, the more shit you're susceptible to, and especially in this era of shifting balances with regard to justice and law and whatnot. And there's this idea that because you have the ability to track things at a greater rapidity and greater depth than you ever have, that you should be able to utilize those tools in enforcement of law. And again, the problem is that all of the ways that you make your intended targets more viable or attainable or discernible from the populace at large, the more often you're going to be catching yourself. In the more ways that you'll become victims of the same shit. And that there's always promises of security and trust, and we'll never look in your lockbox. We'll never look in your rental space. We'll never take money out of your account without asking you. We'll never set up accounts in your name without asking you. How many times have we seen over the last 5 years these promises grossly violated by the very entities in which we place the trust? So what makes anyone believe that they would be somehow invulnerable to these same backdoors and other compromises of our data that they are trying to mandate that programmers include in their software? I don't understand it, really. I don't. I mean, it's like you might as well just be like, when you're pushing for that kind of overreach, you might as well be signing up for somebody to fit you with a noose, because eventually that thing's going to pull tight. There's going to be some change of law, some change of interpretation of law, whatever. All of a sudden you're a criminal. Like I was talking about that Chinese thing. Number one, I don't expect it to actually go through. I expect them to get maybe 2 more days, and then they'll say, "Oh, shit! That's gonna put the emperor's second nephew on his side, or his dad's side. That's gonna fuck that guy over. So we better not enforce the shit." That's how I expect it to trickle down. But let's look on the flip side. Let's look at examples of present day that shows exactly how much good all of this regulation does in stopping people who intended to commit crimes to begin with from committing those crimes. And this one is on occrp.org. Danske Bank, 2018 Actor of the Year in Organized Crime and Corruption. This is by the OCCRP staff. A 230 billion euro money laundering scandal put Danske Bank ahead of a record 22 other contenders to win the 2019 Corrupt Actor of the Year award from the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. For the past 7 years, the nonprofit media organization has spotlighted the individual or institution that has done the most over the previous 12 months to advance organized criminal activity and corruption in the world. Quote, Danske Bank is a worthy recipient of this prize. It highlights the role of the criminal services industry in enabling international corruption and crime, said OCCRP co-founder and editor Drew Sullivan. The term criminal services refers to the banks, law firms, registration agents, accountants, and others who help criminals and corrupt officials who hide their assets and legitimize their operations. Hold on one second, gotta rehydrate. Dude, can you hear it? This wasn't even planned, but Exodus, corruption is playing in the background. In the past 20 years, they've globalized organized crime and autocracy and helped everyone from Mexican drug cartels to Russian President Vladimir Putin to terrorists, autocrats, and almost every other global threat, he said. Sullivan was one of the 9 judges who made the final selection. Nominations were submitted by journalists and the public. Finalists for the reward meant to identify the world's most influential rogues included Russian President Vladimir Putin, a former OCCRP Person of the Year. Number 2, Hungarian President Viktor Orban, who has enriched himself and his friends while cracking down on migrants and turning his country away from democracy. Number 3, Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, implicated in the death and dismemberment of U.S.-based journalist Jamal Khashoggi, as well as in jailing dissidents and shaking down and torturing rivals. Number 4, President Trump, whose charitable foundation, family business, and presidential campaigns are embroiled in investigations. And actually, number 4, I would consider to be kind of whatever. Only because, the guy's created some enemies. What do you want? And some of them happen to work at the DOJ, the FBI, so on and so forth. In the end, the OCCRP jury settled on Danske Bank for its role in the Estonian branch played in allowing billions of dollars to be laundered over the past decade. The Guardian newspaper has described the most recent scandal as involving, quote, 32 currencies, companies from Cyprus, the British Virgin Islands, and the Seychelles. In one operation, billions of dollars flowed through Danske's Estonian branch from Azerbaijan to offshore companies, high-ranking officials, and even European politicians who praised the nation's regime despite its chronic human rights abuses, according to an OCCRP report. In Azerbaijan, Danske Bank was the conduit for bribes, parking stolen assets, and theft of national resources for one of the most vindictive and corrupt regimes in the world, said Paul Radu, OCCRP co-founder and judge. The corrupt Aliyev family couldn't have done this without the bank. This November, Denmark's state prosecutor accused the bank of failing to institute risk management and control systems at its Estonian business. Prosecutors alleged that managers in Copenhagen failed to ensure the bank's compliance with the Danish Anti-Money Laundering Act. The bank is also being investigated by the U.S. Department of Justice and, according to Bloomberg News, has admitted that its Estonian branch was a central causeway for illicit funds from the former Soviet Union. About $230 billion in transactions were under scrutiny, Bloomberg reported. In 2013, the head of the bank's Baltic Trading Unit, Howard Wilkinson, warned that the Danske Bank Executive Board in Copenhagen about the suspicious activities in Estonia, but Wilkinson's warnings were ignored. Of course they were. It's fucking official business. It's profit, bitch. Danske Bank Estonia has been implicated in other money laundering schemes. An OCCRP investigation, the Russian laundromat, revealed that $20 billion to $80 billion was fraudulently moved out of Russia through a network of global banks that included Danske. Danske stock has plunged by half in the last year amid a separate European Union investigation and as other inquiries proliferate. Bank officials, including Chief Executive Thomas Borgen, have been forced out as the scope of the scandal emerged. The Danske Bank operation demonstrates, quote, the structural nature of corruption, said South African anti-corruption activist Henny van Vuren, a judge in the OCCRP vote. It's, quote, high time that we focus on the enablers and not just the low-hanging, offensive political fruit, Van Vuren said. Quote, nothing shows up our glaring blind spots more than this bank. It ran a money laundering enterprise on such a massive scale that it startles most of us. And yes, it should shake the anti-corruption community to its roots that the bank is based in Denmark, a country that Transparency International has consistently labeled as amongst the top 3 least corrupt for more than 2 decades. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte was OCCRP's Person of the Year in 2017, the only previous time judges selected an institution rather than an individual was in 2013, when the award went to the Romanian parliament after it took steps to decriminalize bribery and other forms of corruption. OCCRP serves as an independent investigative reporting platform for 46 member centers that stretch from Europe to Central Asia and across the Atlantic into Latin America. It works to advance public understanding of how organized crime and corruption affect lives by advancing sharper coverage of corruption and producing in-depth cross-border investigative stories. The Swedish Department Agency USAID, the Danish government Illuminate, the Open Society Foundations, and other major international donor support, RCCP, which has offices in Sarajevo, Bucharest, Riga, and Washington, D.C. Yeah, and looking at the judges here, Ying Chan, blah, 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 and Masha Gissen, and Sashka Kvetkovska. My apologies, ma'am. Yeah, so I don't know how much their opinion really matters on the grander scheme of things, but the idea that they were involved in such criminal enterprises, it's like, what the fuck is really going on when we're talking about regulation of cryptocurrencies and we're talking about discernment of commerce, whether we're talking about pot or gold or whatever. I don't really see the necessity, honestly. If anything, cryptocurrencies are far more transparent than any other currency. And it's one of those things that I think people should keep in mind when they are talking about regulating cryptocurrencies, is that in the future, any of your commerce done via cryptocurrencies will be held under these realms of scrutiny. That is, if they're ever really, put forward as the means that we do that. And I really think it's that dagger over everybody's head that kind of stays the hand of regulators, that they haven't been more strident against certain entities in this space. If you look at any of the people that are, in my estimation at least, conducting what would be considered criminal activities, such as like maybe Tether and a few other quote-unquote stable coins, I believe all of them that are based on quote-unquote fiat currencies are nothing more than counterfeit fiat. They're worse yet, they're outside all of a lot of the banking regulations that exist. And I can see some concern there on the part of the NYDFS, but their concern is overly broad, and their scrutiny is way overblown, especially considering the nature of these currencies. I mean, if they're trackable and accountable in ways that fiat currencies just aren't. And I think if banks were acting in their own self-interest, in their own real self-interest, they would be seeking to act legitimately along with us without the necessity of quote-unquote regulatory clarity. Because really all that means is, I can do it, but you can't. That's all regulatory clarity means. It means kick you the fuck out because I'm going to pay you. That as far as I'm concerned, that's some form of institutional bribery for market containment. It's protectionist. And I think that too is one of those realms. It's going to be too expensive to even bother with enforcement. And we're at and going back to that Wild West system where it's either you fucking make good or you don't. And if you don't fucking make good, we're going to hold you to account. Theft is still theft. Fraud is still fraud. Nothing has changed just because it's all ones and zeros, or that it's on a public blockchain, or a private one for that matter. The point being is the technology doesn't change the criminal element, whether it be an intent or just simple execution, whether it even be just criminal negligence out to cryptojacking you through your fucking browser and making your computer mine Monero. It's still fraud. It's still theft. And I think that's the real thing that we should be concentrating on in cryptocurrencies, is rather than trying to make cryptocurrencies fit the molds set out by banks and existing financiers, because it's really what's allowed this kind of shit to go on. And if you really look at the entities and what their goals are, a lot of them are seeking to divorce you from the blockchain, be the interface between you and it. They're asking for the same position of trust that Danske Bank and Wells Fargo and all these others have abused over the last decade, and much to the detriment to the public at large. So when I see people on my Twitter feed praising the idea of custodial services in Bitcoin, I want to throw something. I want to pick something up and throw something. Because that's specifically what Bitcoin was designed not to need, was a third-party intermediary, and these people are celebrating the introduction of third-party intermediaries like that's going to make anything better. Oh yeah, we're doing all your transactions on a centralized server. We've created this huge honeypot of fucking money for somebody to figure out how to abuse the transaction associated with our payment channel and just extract it via our two-way payment channel. And you're just fucked. Sorry. It's new technology. It's experimental. Give me a fucking break. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And where to go? I don't want to overdo that one. And, I haven't played any Slipknot tonight. There's something wrong with that. I've got to fix that shit. Anyway, where is it? Great chapter, great chapter, great chapter. There's this one song on here and it always gets me. Custer, here on Coin Metal. And that was Sixth with Century of the Narcissist. Actually, it's got a question mark at the end, so I should have asked that as a question. Anyway, yeah, that is with that. I'm going to cash it out for the evening. We will be back again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But yeah, it doesn't matter what side of the realm that you're currently on, whether you're looking at this as something to regulate or using it as something to conduct commerce in. It really doesn't matter. Eventually, we're going to get through this. It's just a phase. And on the other end of it, I really expect us to have found that the enforcement of the types of regulations on this sphere that we've experienced in digital finance to date will ultimately cost us far more than it will ever promise to us in security or control. And it is with that I'd like to close this one out. Thank you very, very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. Until Wednesday, you'll be able to find me on Twitter, on Facebook, also the Telegram or Discord for Verge Currency. So until Wednesday, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Thank you again for listening, and as far as our last dance is concerned, it's got to be Nomad by Sepultura here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening. Oh, I'm sorry, this is The Hunt. There you go. It's all in Japanese, can't read it.